Before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you a quick favour. If you're getting value from any of our podcasts, and I genuinely hope you are, could you take just 30 seconds right now and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? It sounds like a small thing, but a rating would make a huge difference, and it'll take less time than pouring a cup of coffee. G'day. Welcome to the AgriCoach podcast for families on the land who want to grow their family's wealth and prosperity across the generations. I'm your host, Ben Law, and I'm the financial bloke. A few episodes back, I had a specialist ag recruiter, Kelly McDougall, on the show. It was episode number 127. We were talking about how farming businesses can attract and keep great staff. And it was one of those conversations where one answer kind of stopped me in my tracks. I asked Kelly what the single biggest mistake farming businesses make when it comes to recruiting top talent. And she said they don't market themselves well enough. Now, top talent, the people you actually want working for you, they're going to Google your business before they ever respond to a job ad. They'll look you up on Instagram, check you on Facebook, and see if you have any presence at all. And if you're invisible online, most of them will move on before you even knew they were looking. Now, here's the thing that really landed for me. Top performers aren't always looking when you're advertising. So your social media presence isn't just a nice to have. It's a job ad that's running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, whether you have a vacancy or not. The farming businesses that understand this aren't waiting until they're desperate to hire. They're building a brand consistently. So when the right person comes along, they already know who they are. Now, that conversation with Kelly set me looking for someone who lives and breathes this space. And I found Lavinia Wehr from AgSocial. Lavinia grew up on a farm in Western Australia, studied PR, and then went on to build AgSocial, a social media and communications agency dedicated exclusively to the ag industry. She works with farming businesses and agribusinesses all over Australia, helping them build a genuine online presence that reflects who they are and what they stand for. But what I find equally compelling about Lavinia is her own story. She spotted a gap that nobody else was filling, backed herself completely, and built a team and a business from scratch. That story of a young person going out and creating something rather than waiting for something to come to them is exactly the kind of story I want more of our next-gen listeners to hear. Now, most of the online world is a bit of a mystery to me. You know, there's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, TikTok, and websites. And for most farming families, it's exactly the same way. Now, I want to do this, but where the hell do I start? And do I need to do absolutely everything? So for most families, it's overwhelming. Where do they start? And then they absolutely do nothing. Today, we're going to dig in how to effectively build an online presence that will drive top talent to your door. So without further delay, Lavinia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, you're an old hat at this, so this will be really easy for you.
I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done podcasting probably for 18 months, but I love a good yap, so it should be fine.
Well, that's the same as me, so we'll be fine. So today we're all here to talk about building an online presence, so marketing, social media, etc. So I just want to lay it out on the table for everyone listening to start that a lot of farming businesses think building an online presence is an absolute waste of time and social media is just for influencers or I suppose you'd say show ponies who just want to brag about their operation, put up photos about how great they are. What do you say to that?
I think agriculture as an industry in this country is becoming a lot more advanced and we are a much more sophisticated enterprise. And with that comes a much more sophisticated business. And you talk a lot about that. And one side of that is obviously marketing and therefore social media. And I really think the opportunity now is to be able to actually have social media as a platform where you tell your story from your genuine perspective. And from an outset, people that are wanting to be recruited by you are now looking at, what are your business's values? How do you treat your staff? What sort of machinery do you have? What's your crop look like? like? What's your systems? And you can tell that in a really genuine way through social media because you get to control that narrative. And so I really think it's a great opportunity, especially for those businesses that are farming enterprises that are in a growth stage and really wanting to see higher levels of recruitment. It's a great way to get a heap of resumes come through and to be able to promote their business. But now, especially because from me coming from WA, we're seeing some of our clients that are growers over there and some of our farmers start to sort of understand and take the whole supply chain. In broadacre previously, we haven't had control of that. And so now we're having people who are commercial buyers from international markets actually come to broadacre websites and social presence and actually see the whole story there, because that is part of that segment of buying now. They want to understand that whole story. So social's a great platform for that. I don't see it as a place to brag. I see it as a genuine platform where you can actually control your narrative.
That's really good. And so it used to be back in the day, I remember my dad would talk about you drive up to the front of a farmer's property and you look at the front gate. And if the front gate's really neat and tidy and everything looks clean, then you go, okay, there must be a half reasonable farmer. I mean, this is a similar sort of thing, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, 100% without having to drive to the farm. But I think now sort of we've changed that. There are a lot of farms that do have beautiful farm gates, but a lot of people want their privacy now as well. So this is definitely that platform where you can share what you're doing, what you're growing, what you're selling, and sort of that supply of how you're doing that throughout the year and what that looks like, and sort of sharing that challenge as well, because there are a lot of challenges now as we move through the market in this environment.
Now, Lavinia, you mentioned that you grew up in Western Australia. Obviously, that's where you grew up. I know your parents are on a property over there, and now you now run this company called AgSocial. So just talk us through, because you've got a great story to go from ag to marketing, but how did you get from there to here where you are now? And for anyone who doesn't know AgSocial, what is it and what do you actually do?
Lots of questions.
Yes.
So I grew up, on a sheep and broadacre cropping program farm in Western Australia in Esperance, and that was a really huge foundational piece for probably understanding the agricultural industry. It was just me and my dad on the farm most of the time, and I got this probably very unique lens to how a agricultural business ran. And all of my family basically are farmers now as well, or entrepreneurs in some capacity. So business has always been instilled in me from a very young age. And that sort of was that starting point to understand that there was opportunity in the agricultural industry, although I was never overly encouraged to go into it. So I went away to school, which is what all kids really in WA, they go away to high school, went to university and did a degree in commerce, majoring in public relations. And that's sort of my dip toe into sort of what marketing was and social media specifically, and got some really great opportunities while I was there to do some internships and work really hard. And I think that work ethic that you get instilled in you from agriculture, people really see that. And then that led to an amazing opportunity with the Royal Agricultural Society in Western Australia. And from there, that was the social media sort of foundation to say, there is this amazing industry of agriculture and some amazing people in marketing, but there aren't many people who understand all the nuances of agriculture and marketing to be able to communicate to farmers, because we are a very unique industry and we have a very unique set of skills and set of resources and sort of set of experiences. And that was sort of the starting point. And I floated the idea by some friends who were farming at the time and sort of said, I really want to do social media marketing for farmers, like agricultural businesses. And a lot of people were skeptical, and this was sort of like pre-COVID 2018, 2019. I remember one of my dad's friends was like, I don't know if this is what's going to work. The irony is now these men are the ones on social media sharing these reels, and they are our target audience 7 years later. But yeah, it sort of took off from there, and it was slow in the beginning. I'd say sort of the end of COVID 2021, 22, and becoming a foundational agency in 2022. So we've been AgSocial for 4 years as of April. That was sort of the starting point. So we are a socials first marketing agency for agricultural businesses. So we work with big agricultural businesses that are national, but some are based in WA, some are based in South Australia, some are based in Vic, New South Wales, Queensland. No one in the NT as of yet, but my team would love that. And we really focus on creating a strategy that actually does resonate with what growers are doing on the ground. So we are across what's happening in broadacre across the country, horticulture, livestock, and really making sure that we understand all the different nuances in the areas to be able to actually deliver those messages appropriately to what's going on for the season, and to really make sure that our clients are seeing great results too. But really excitingly, we're having some great results and we're seeing really awesome things happening on the ground at the moment, which really helps our strategies flow.
Awesome. So a lot of next-gen people listen to the podcast, or parents as well, that are thinking about their kids. And I see a lot, and I was one of those, Lavinia. So I grew up on the farm. I went off and studied ag economics and then went out and worked in financial advice for many years. And then when I started the podcast, everyone said, you're batshit crazy. Farmers won't listen to podcasts. And I said, no, that's not true. They've got a lot of spare time. And the same when I started the coaching business, people are like, oh, farmers don't want coaches. What do they want those for? And it's been amazing change over time. So I want to dig into, you grew up on the farm, then you went out and you're obviously an employee, but how did you get to the point where you decided to back yourself and start your own business? Because that's a big step to go from a salary. And just to top in there, how old were you when that happened?
Well, I was only 22. I'm 30 now. So I've been working for myself for 8 years. Those first few years, I did a lot of sort of just strategy work, freelance. So backing myself in the beginning, honestly, I have a great supportive family. And this is back in, 2017, 2018. So there wasn't jobs in marketing, in social media, in the same capacity in Western Australia or nationally that there is now. And I was working for an agency which, when you leave school and uni and then you get out into the real world, at 22 you feel like you're so fresh and everything's exciting and you go to your dream job. And I went to an agency and I realized quite quickly, having had all these entrepreneurs and family members who's run their own businesses, that this business wasn't being run very well and these people didn't understand how to look after staff, and they didn't understand my experience or where I'd come from, so they didn't realize that I knew a lot. And now being 30 in the position, I was absolutely on the money back then and I would back myself 10 over. They just really didn't get the understanding that if you look after your staff and treat your staff well, your staff will support you in return. So I was really unhappy for 22, and I would be sort of in tears after work each day, which for people who know me, if I'm upset like that, it's really detrimental. I'm not a very overly emotional person. Naturally, that's the agriculture in us.
Stoicism.
Yes, being able to just handle it all. So I was in grief one day on the phone to my dad and he's like, why don't you start your own thing? You could help people, you know what you're doing. And that was sort of that trigger point. I think if I'd always looked back earlier and asked myself where I'd be in 10 years, I probably would have said, yes, I'm going to run my own business one day. But I probably wouldn't have thought at 22 I would have started. So to answer your salary question, I have not ever known what it was like to have money. And I think that's probably partly one of the reasons that I've been successful, because I literally had no money for probably 5 or 6 years. Bootstrapped it. A lot of people think that I was supported by my family. Yes, in terms of I lived rent free, but I've 100% backed myself financially through this business myself from the beginning. And I'm super proud of that. And I probably don't actually give myself enough credit for that. But bootstrapped the whole way. It's only been the last couple of years that I've been able to employ really amazing women in this business, and we've sort of taken the business to the next level. But it's been a journey. I probably don't reflect on it as much as I should, because I think we're always like, what's next? But it's definitely a lot of high highs and a lot of low lows, a lot of learning. It's been a really exciting journey. I think running your own business is the biggest personal development story that you'll ever have. The version of the person that you have to become to run a business, particularly a business with high level individuals working with you that also want to grow, you have to be really, really aware of who you are and who you're becoming. But it's really exciting. I couldn't be more thankful. I love the journey and we're in such a good spot now, and the clients that we have are just great. And we've had some of our clients since 2019, since the beginning. And for a regular agency outside of agriculture, the churn is normally 18 months, 2 years. For us, we don't have any of that. We've got amazing relationships and I couldn't be more grateful for them.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? And then this is something that I've interviewed. I think we're up to 130 odd episodes, I think, now, Lavinia. And one of the things is I like to ask a lot of guests, what would you do if you had your time again, essentially, if you went back in a time machine? And I reckon, anecdotally, I'd guess around 80 to 90% would say I'd backed myself earlier. And this is a real thing. Like as you said, you grew up in an entrepreneurial world. Your dad said, why don't you give it a crack? Whereas a lot of kids don't have that opportunity, or young people don't have that opportunity. Their parents, I know my parents loved me to death, but they said, get a job, get a good job, get a good pay. Don't sort of be in the world like we are. What would your advice to young people out there that are wanting to have a crack but are just lacking that confidence? What would you say to them?
Number one, you have AI to support you now. If I had had AI at the beginning of my business, I would be so much further ahead already. There's so many hacks there, and even TikTok business now. There are so many resources out there, and I think the next 10 years is such a pivotal point in where the world's going and what's the worst that's going to happen. And I think that's why the earlier you start, the better, because you don't know what it's like to earn money. So if you're already living on $40,000, $30,000 a year, you're already figuring it out and making it work. Whereas if once you get to that like 100K or 80K salary, it's very hard to start from scratch again because you've already acclimatized to that sort of lifestyle of living a big life. Whereas if you are starting early and young, you're sort of energized, you're probably still living at home. A lot of your friends are at uni still figuring it out. That's the best time. And we just got so many resources in this country now that, just give it a crack. I think probably a lot of your listeners are farmers as well, and that's probably even harder. But I think seeing a lot of my friends now who are farming, I think it's like take the risk now, because in 10 years the interest rates are higher, the amount more money you need will be even higher. Like it's going to be crazy. So I think the earlier that you start, just honestly for farming or most businesses now, getting into debt, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
Yeah, that's funny. I always say to young people, like, take the risk now, which is what you're sort of alluding to. Take the risk now, because your 20s is the times where you make the mistakes. And it's cheap making mistakes when you're in your 20s. It costs you virtually nothing. It actually makes you money, because once you make a mistake, you learn the lessons and you move on. Whereas once you get married as well, you get that higher wage, you get married or get in a partnership, have kids, have debts, then all of a sudden the rug can get pulled out of you very quickly. It's very hard to pivot.
Yeah, I think you're so right with that family thing. And we actually probably don't talk about that enough. And that's probably because majority of the entrepreneurs that we see are men, usually in their 20s, not as many women. And so there's not really a lot of conversation around sort of what do you do once you have a family. And this is something that I'm probably not there yet, but something that I do think of in the back of my mind, being a woman and having a biological clock, is that I'm glad that I started earlier, because when and if I do decide that I want to get married and have children, my business is going to be fairly built and structured already, so I can take that step back. And that's just the realistic fact of being a woman versus being a man, and how you take care of your children, particularly in the early days. But I think the earlier the better, because like you say, once you start to have a family, if your business isn't built, particularly as a man as well, there's actually part of their psychology is that they become an even higher level caretaker, so they want to work harder and more to provide for their family. So if you're already providing, it means you can be more present when your kids are there. And that's something that I think a lot of people in agriculture, we're always just working really hard, and we often don't take that additional time to be with our family when they're young. And I think that's something a lot of people come back to and say, oh, I wish I'd taken that extra holiday, or, taken that time to be with my kids, because I actually would have got to exactly where I was going anyway. I know my dad says that a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And I agree. And for young men as well out there, like, you will get in a relationship, you will have children, hopefully. And then once that happens is you don't have the luxury of taking the bigger risks. And so my advice is get in early, have a crack. And so from your point of view, Lavinia, was there any times where you sort of got a few kicks in the guts? Because I've started 2 businesses now from scratch and bootstrapped. And I know for me, there's been times where I've gone, oh my God, it'd be so much easier to bloody just go get a high paying job and go back. Has there been any time where you've got a kick in the guts where you've gone, oh geez, this might not be for me. I maybe should change my mind?
So many, particularly early on, especially because I had not had much exposure to just business. So I'd obviously had growing up, and I think that was probably my biggest thing, is I'd always been like grilled, save for tax. So I've never had any of those struggles, and I'm quite frugal in that capacity. But yeah, 100%, you have high highs and you have low lows. Like, you know, you might gain 3 or 4 exciting clients, and then, you know, you lose one that you didn't expect, or, you know, you have a full day on a content shoot and you think, oh, this is going to be so great. And then you don't get what the outcome is. I think the more that I've been in business, the more that I become very resilient, and I'm sort of very much at an equilibrium now with a lot. Like, I don't get too heightened about anything. It just sort of is what it is. But in the early days, when you're still building that sort of cash flow and you're still sort of trying to like figure out how to pay for your life and pay your employees and save for tax, it's pretty stressful. But yeah, I'm so glad that I've stuck it in, but definitely has been times where I've definitely scrolled Seek back in the early days, sort of pre-COVID, where I was like, oh God, I could just use a salary. But oh God, I'm so grateful that it's worked out this way. Like, I think everything happens for a reason, and I've just really backed myself. But that comes back to that personal development of really being able to believe in myself and being that person to support myself. Because at the end of the day, you've only really got yourself. And so you've got to be a bit delusional. I always say that you've got to be delusional, and I've put big thoughts out into the world, and my sister thinks I'm a bit insane sometimes, but she's like, everything you've said has come true. Obviously you work so hard, but you put it out there and you make it happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I'm guessing, like a lot of entrepreneurs, once a little bit of success starts coming through, even before a lot of success comes through, people will quite often say, gee, you're lucky. This has all just happened for you. Isn't this amazing? They don't actually see the struggles. And I think a lot of young people need to realize that to get to success, you've got to struggle. It's not an easy journey. It's not the easiest path. But as Richard Branson said, an entrepreneur is someone who'll do the things today that nobody else will do, so they can do the things in the future that nobody else is able to do. So
yeah,
it's like that,
I love that.
Yeah, and that was one I remember early in my career that I heard, and I went, wow, that's me. I'm not sacrificing completely today, but I'm doing the things today that everyone else won't do that'll create an opportunity for me down the track. And now I'm at my age, I'm reaping the rewards of that effort compared to everyone else that took the safe route. So, okay, well, Lavinia, I love your story, mate, and I love your attitude. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and I think a lot of young people could listen to that, and hopefully some people will have a crack. But where we want to get to is, I mentioned in the introduction that I had a specialist ag recruiter on here a couple of episodes ago, and she said one of the biggest mistakes farming businesses make is they don't have an online presence, so that top talent will find you. And especially if you're invisible online, they're never going to find you. So what, in your mind, are the top agribusinesses, including farming and non-farming, what are the top businesses doing that's actually right now?
Number one, having a plan. There are a lot of agribusinesses, but just businesses in general, that don't have much of a plan. And when you don't have a plan, how do you actually know what you're going to do in terms of knowing how you're going to break it down in a marketing capacity and know what you're going to post? So that's my number one thing, is that you want to have a plan. And it can be so rough. It can be a 1-page document to say, this is what our year looks like. We know we've got this seeding, sowing, planting, wherever you are in the country is start for winter is happening now. We've got our cereals going in here. We've got this going in here. You can jot down those sort of key dates, and then you can build in content around that. And that's a really good starting point where I say, perfect. You've got a plan. You know what your year calendar looks like. Now, what are your sort of key values or things that you're trying to get across on your social? Are you trying to recruit? Are you trying to just create awareness around what you're actually growing? Are you trying to do some educational stuff? I'm loving all the educational stuff that's coming onto social now. It's so valuable and so important. There's a dairy farmer over in the East, and he started posting daily on TikTok, and it's just so interesting because he's talking about what the world's doing, but in a capacity that affects him on his dairy farm. And so it can be little snippets like that, and you don't have to start with talking to camera. I know that can be really confronting, but if you've just got your key pillars, 3 or 4 sort of ideas of what you want to get across, and then you can start jotting ideas down from there. And then once you sort of get those brain waves going, then you've got a plan, and you're like, oh, hang on, we've got 8 to 10 posts already for this month of ideas. And then you just have to go, okay, we know that we're going to be seeding this paddock on Thursday. one of us needs to make sure we get a video or a photo. I lean into video so much now. I think everything will be video within the next 18 months. That's the direction that we're going. I think we're going to become more of a content agency than ever before because people love that human interaction. So just go, cool, we want to get some people in the shot. Make sure that everyone's doing what they need to do in terms of like it's actually safe, and make sure the caption's genuine and makes sense to your business, and then get it out there. It doesn't have to be really intense in the beginning. It can start slow, but I think just the consistency of setting yourself a goal of, yeah, I'm going to post 4 times this month or 8 times this month, and then go from there, and actually can work backwards, and it's really easy.
Yep. So we start with a plan and we say, what are we trying to achieve? So are we trying to attract staff? Are we trying to attract joint ventures, build our profile, etc.? So get really clear on that. And I think you mentioned before, AI should be able to help you with that. I'm guessing you can, if you're sitting there going, God, Ben, where do I even start? I'm guessing you can just add it into AI, ask the questions, and it gives you some great prompts.
100%.
And then you work out how many posts you're going to do each month. Is there a great starting point that you'd look at for amounts? Is it like 1 a week? Is it 1 a day? Is it 1 a month? Like, what's the thought there?
We sort of go off 3 posts a week, but for people that are feeling a bit overwhelmed, start with 1 post a week just to start to get into the habit. My perspective is to batch post. So that's like setting a time in your office time to go, cool, I'm going to spend an hour a month on this. And just batch out, which is pre-scheduling all your posts. You can do it straight through Meta. It's really easy. AI or YouTube can help you figure that one out. Or if you're really keen, DM us on social. We'll definitely help you out there. Then you go, cool, my 1 hour of social's done. The next 4 posts are done. All good. So yeah, I'd say start with 1 a week just to get into the habit and slowly work your way to 3 a week. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so essentially you can use some posting software or use it within Meta, as you mentioned, which is Facebook and Instagram. So you can put that post in there. You can do them all at once and then time them so they come out once a week. So you can sit in on a Friday, put 4 posts in, and the next month's done.
Exactly. It should be just easy. You shouldn't feel overwhelmed. Don't spend too much time on it in the beginning. Just do something. That's what I say. Better than doing nothing.
Yep. So we get some videos, we get some photos, for example, if people want to do that. And do they have to be super exciting? Because people will look, oh, well, I've got nothing interesting to post. And, what do I actually post?
Well, everything's exciting that's happening in your day. So you're on the cedar, you might just talk about what variety that you're putting out and what you're growing this year. I think we forget that as farmers, we're doing 1,000 things a day and we have so many things we could be talking about. It could just be like, what's in your lunchbox today? People love that. It could just be, this wheat crop started germinating. People love seeing a germinating crop. Literally every single part of a farmer's day could be content. I promise everything is interesting to people looking out. I think we sometimes get too in the weeds and too bogged down thinking, this and that. Just don't overthink it. Just go, you know what? I'm posting this because we're sowing this. Or talk about your, seeding setup and what you've done and what tillage parts you're using. I bet you your tillage will, I know for a fact, whoever you've got for your tillage parts is on social. They'll love that or reshare it. Like, it could be as small or as big as you want it to be, but every single thing you're doing on farm, promise, can be content.
Because that's the thing, is if you think about the objective for most farmers in this case is going to be to attract top talent, which is what we started with. So if you're just posting regular stuff and it's not that sexy or exciting, it's just, this is us branding, this is us getting in the tractor and seeding at the moment, this is us maintaining our machinery, that all tells a story of the type of business you are and the type of people you are. And they get to actually know you as a human or as a family or as a business, and then they feel much more comfortable. And then their job ad pops up, they're going to go, oh, you know what? I might check out Lavinia's farm. This looks like a great place to possibly work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sharing the story is everything that we're doing across all our clients' strategies now. People like people. We're attracted to people. We're not going through, what's that business doing? We're going, who am I going to work with? What are their values? How do they align? And 100% you're right. It's a really genuine way to connect without having that direct connection with someone, and it shows those values. And a picture tells 1,000 words, or a video tells even more. So people do see, okay, they really care about how they're putting this crop in. They really care about their machinery quality. Like, you can tell so much by one post from a farm, similar to like what you said earlier with the farm gate. It's that same recognition. And I think sometimes because we're so caught up on our farm, we don't realize how an individual piece of content can have that higher level value.
It can, yeah. And it's interesting. Chris Webb said to me, who we've had on the podcast a number of times, a high-performance manager, he always said high performers want to work in high-performance environments. So your top performers, the people you want to get in your business that are rock stars, farm managers, farm workers, some sort of employee, they're going to want to work in a top business. So you want to showcase that to them to be able to say, hey, this is a great place to work, because that's what they'll be attracted to. Now, Lavinia, the other thing also is if people are a little bit nervous about this and they're going, putting videos and going on content. The other day I saw one pop up on someone who does a really good job, Four Daughters Beef. I know the Penfold family do a great job, and I think it was Bonnie, one of the four daughters, was changing a tyre on the side of the road. And it was just a simple photo of his Bonnie changing the tyre. It might have even been a video. Now, that to most people would be as boring as batshit. Why would anyone want to see that? But again, that was just a simple way of putting some content out, which people could look at and be interested in. Is that okay for the people that are really nervous and going, I'm not a content producer, I'm a farmer, and this is just all too much? Something as simple as that?
Yeah, I think so. It's just a bit of a humility post too around this is what's actually happening on farm. I think something that's really interesting is that we as an industry, everything we do on a day-to-day is so normal and sort of part of the day that we just don't realize how much it can be content and tell the story. But it tells that human capacity piece as well of it's not always going to go perfect, but we've just got to keep going. And I think that sort of builds that level of understanding of the resilience factor that you need to potentially be on farm as well, because obviously, as we both know, everything on farm, you might have a plan and then that day something happens and it goes completely off kilter. So you've got to be able to pivot. And so to share those little parts of the story, it really pulls together the whole story of what they're doing on their farm and what the expectations will be there too. But yeah, it's a real life piece and it's a great way to share. And I think it's really open. And yeah, I don't think people sometimes realize coming into the agricultural industry, how much is going on and that they're not just going to sit on a fancy machine and press auto steer all day, that there's so much more that they're going to be a part of too.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is one of the things that Kelly McDougall, the recruiter, said to me, she goes, is this sales between what you present as the job and what the reality is. And so does there have to be an element of reality? We're not just trying to polish this up so it looks like an amazing place, and then when people turn up, they go, oh, this is a shithole. Is it important to get that authenticity as well? Yeah,
always. I mean, I think that as an industry, we're very authentic to the point, and that's why it's really important that we do share those stories of exactly what's happening in the highs and the lows, and it can be in a curated way. I think sometimes we're all a little bit afraid to share what's really going on because we don't want to be perceived by probably other people in the industry as maybe doing something wrong or we're worried about what X, Y, and Z over the road will think when they see this post. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really great opportunity to just be able to be honest and be open. And yeah, like you say, so when people do turn up, if it is in a HR, recruitment perspective, they know what they're getting into, and making sure that that is the real opportunity and the real sort of understanding of what the job role will entail. Because yeah, I think sometimes we see those beautiful drone cinematic videos of machinery and we go, oh gosh, that looks really exciting. But sometimes it is just a day waiting for moisture to come down, or sometimes we've got to go and do livestock work because there's no spraying to be done or something like that. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, totally. And so when you look at this and you go, okay, well, I've got a plan. I want to post and I'm going to do one post a week and I'm going to load them up once a month into the software. Where do I actually go to do this, Lavinia? Because I mean, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, there's X. You just mentioned TikTok, there's YouTube. For most people, that'd be and I know when I started, it was totally overwhelming. Where should people start?
For farm businesses, it's Instagram and Facebook 100%. I think if you're becoming more of a corporate family farm now and corporate farm, definitely LinkedIn should be on your radar and you should be utilizing that now too, because LinkedIn is a higher calibre place to sort of get those higher level recruits. And we're seeing a lot of transition now where people want farm managers and people on farm of a higher calibre. So they've gone to university, potentially they've done an agronomy degree and that sort of thing. So I definitely say they're your three. X/Twitter is an interesting one now. We've definitely pivoted away from it for most of our clients because they're not seeing the level of engagement since it was bought by Elon. It's definitely, I've seen a lot of people lean out to it. I know some people are still on there a little bit, but it definitely seems like there's a lot of interesting perspectives off kilter. So I think just to keep things simple, definitely Facebook and Instagram. They're both really searchable too. So if someone was to search a farm name in Google, they would find them really easy. YouTube's great for long form. We're seeing some really great farmers post some long form vlog content, but that's definitely not dip your toes starting point. That is definitely the other end of the scale, high end software, time to edit. It's really high capacity and takes a lot of time. And you obviously have to be really passionate about content as well. But that's probably where I'd start. There's also TikTok as well. TikTok's great for drone videos and just getting that cinematic, beautiful look and sort of more of that rough around the edges type of stuff. Just make sure that you're doing everything safely and wearing seatbelts. We see a lot of content come through and can't reshare it because nothing is work health safety. So yeah, that's just something to think about too.
Yeah, well, that ties me back into what are the biggest mistakes people make, Lavinia? They come to you and they say, hey, I've given this Facebook and this Instagram a bit of a crack and, we're just not getting, this is all too hard. What are the biggest mistakes you see people make?
Well, from a content perspective, just to lean in, yes, I think please wear your seatbelts. Please, really be careful with children. This is a topic that is like some people are like, and so it's a difficult one, but I personally think be very careful where you have children in content. I think children do not belong near a lot of machinery. Sure, you might have your kids out there, but please don't, if you're a bigger farm and you're going corporate style, which most farms now are, just be really careful with that content. Children don't belong near sprayers. So that's really important. Or if you've got kids in the car, they've got to be in car seats. They've got to have seatbelts on. Like it seems really simple, but there is so much content out there now. Motorbikes, again, be really careful with them. Side by sides, got your seatbelts on. I'd say 80% of content that I see that's from the capacity I just mentioned, yeah, there's something that's going on in them that I'm like, oh, come on. Like we just have to think a little bit more. It's 2026 now. We should be following these rules and it's just a reality. So that's sort of the first one that I really see as the biggest mistake. And I think that can set you up detrimentally. And I think probably I come in with a bit more of a high caliber lens because we have very, very, very serious laws on this in WA, as you know, Ben, like it's next level now. So yeah, you've got to maintain that. The language that you use as well, if you're posting video content, I think just don't use swear words. I think you want to be mature in the language that you're using and speak really well and articulate that. I think we're really sophisticated as an industry now, so let's portray that. Machinery, again, make sure that it's all up to code and caliber and everything is looking good. And yeah, just it seems like basic things, but often gets missed. And then making sure that with posting, I see everything come through and people don't clean their camera lenses. You see those foggy images. If you're shooting a piece of content, you're like, why isn't this clear? I bet you just haven't cleaned your camera lens. So wipe your camera lens. Make sure that you're like not facing glaring into the sun when you're doing content. If it doesn't look good on your phone then and there, it's probably not going to look good when you get back to your laptop and put it on social. So like, taking things from a few different angles, but most of the time we're getting content from people outside that's machinery. It's not clean content and it needs a lot of overhauling. So like minimize that by taking better content when you're out in the paddock. But I promise if my father, who's in his 60s, is taking great content now and he's not a professional social person at all and doesn't post personally a lot, then everyone can do it. And make sure you're posting a lot more video than just photo. That's really important as well. So they're probably just my first sort of top tips, but yeah, it's just trial and error too, and practice makes perfect.
What about consistency?
Take photos of everything. And like I said, do the batch content. But yeah, it's making sure that you're always getting those 4 posts a month. So yeah, maybe it's one every Wednesday to start with or one every Friday. The good thing about posting through business.facebook.com, which is Meta's posting platform, is it actually shows you best times to post based on what your audience is already doing. So it might say Monday at 8 p.m. is best time for you. So schedule for 8 p.m. on a Monday.
Okay. And so, because what I was getting at is you see a lot of people where they'll come out with a flurry and they'll do a whole heap of content and then they'll stop and then they'll do a whole heap again. Is it more important to just be consistent? You're better to do less but consistently than more in a big flurry?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we've got different seasons for different types of businesses. Some, like, obviously, I come from a broadacre lens, so the habit is back there. But like with hort, say, you've got different things growing at different times of year, so you're on a flow. So it's harder in some parts of ag than it is in others because some are like consistent throughout the year. Some have their higher and like harvest time, you want to post 10 times. But yeah, spreading it out a little bit is way better.
Just to get down the real basics, Lavinia, is it just as simple as take a video on your phone, you upload it? Do you need to do any fancy editing and all these sorts of things if you're just trying to start? Is that important?
I think just start posting, and you could just do like a panning. Obviously, this isn't video recorded, but like a panning's just like a swipe across long ways of your space and film for 15 or 20 seconds. And obviously make sure if you're going to post it with talking in the background and you don't want it talking, you take that off before you post it. You can mute posts and pick a song to put behind it on Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, just keep it really simple in the beginning. That's so important because the CapCut editing, Instagram reel editing, that takes a lot of time to get across if you're not across it already. Just keep it simple in the beginning. And also, there's nothing better than a great crop image. People love it. They always engage well. Me and my team always laugh. We do these high level videos for some of our clients and we just post a great crop shot and it gets so many likes and engaged shares. So, it doesn't have to be too difficult.
Another example I gave, I was talking to my nephew at Christmas time and he's just finished high school and he loves farming. And so he's got a year where he said he's just going to go work on a property. And I gave him a few names of families. And I said, these are some families you could go work for. They're great families. They're beautiful people. And then he came back and he said, "Oh, give me the names." And he found one of them on social media and it was really boring stuff. It wasn't fantastic. But for an 18-year-old young fellow, they had a whole heap of their tractors, their sprayers, their trucks and all that sort of stuff. And I remember he came back to me and he said, the Smith family, he said, "They'd be great to work for." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, they're the ones that I go work for. And I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Well, look, should have seen all the photo of their gear on Facebook or Instagram." I can't remember which one it was. Now, I know that's a silly example. We're not trying to attract 18-year-olds necessarily, but I think that's just a really important point is it was just photos and videos of their seeding machinery going around the paddock and their spray rigs and a few staff doing it. And he was totally sold. So again, I just want to really hammer in is keep it simple, keep it easy, and just get it done. So now, Lavinia, I also want to touch on one other thing just to let everyone know is I had this conversation with one of my families that I work with about 3 months ago. They've got next generation coming through and I said, you guys are trying to recruit people and they have trouble because they're in a remote area trying to attract good staff. And I said, start your social media. And I got the next generation who are 17, 18 and 20. And I said, you guys have got to put together a social media strategy. And they did. It was very basic, very simple. And they started doing posts. I think it was 1 or 2 a week, few videos, few posts. And then they went out there recruiting for a new farm worker. And I was actually really shocked. They said, we got more replies to our Seek ad that they did than we've ever had, and our calibre was much higher.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
They said, look, we got a lot of rubbish as well. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that we didn't want, but they said overall it was a much better outcome. So I want people to keep that in mind that this can really have an impact on who you actually attract. And if you think about the number one complaint that farmers have, in my experience, who are going through that growth phase is how do we get key staff? How do we actually get them in and how do we actually bring them in?
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing. We were both at an event recently together and that was the one thing that most of them were saying is that they're really struggling to get staff that are of that high caliber that can move into sort of managerial positions. So yeah, I think for that, it's really not just sharing on farm. It's about sharing the lifestyle too, especially if somebody's going to move to your region and become a part of your local community. I think that's really important to share. I mean, where I'm from Esperance, so a lot of people sell people on the beautiful beaches and that does get a lot of people across the line, but most people aren't as fortunate as we are down there to have that aspect to be able to sell. So I think you've got to find those unique sort of selling points as well. But it 100% helps with recruitment because even if you don't have a website, but you've got a social page, you can say, oh, that's John and Joe. They look like a really genuine family and look at their kids and the way that they look really great. And they're sort of the vibe that I'm looking for with the workplace I want to be a part of because we probably don't talk about it as much, but lifestyle in 2026 matters even in agriculture. So that's a very important part to portray too.
Yep, especially to the next generation coming through. I know that's
Definitely.
really important. Yeah.
Lifestyle and the vibe and aspects outside of work that are still ingrained in the business, 100%. That's what they're looking for more than anything else, I think.
Awesome. And to be blunt, when I have families come to me and say, hey, Ben, would you be able to help our family? The first place I go is I go to their website or their social media to see who they are, what sort of people they are. And yeah, it does influence my decision quite often. That's the flavour that I take into the conversations. I know who you are, I would know where you're from, and I'm an advisor, shall I say, to families. So it helps in all those areas. Now, Lavinia, as we start to wind this up, we're coming to the end. What I'd like to do is just pass over to you, and I'd like to talk to the mums and dads out there who have got next generation coming through in their 20s, or to the ones that are in their 20s. You're coming to the end of your 20s, is that right?
I've just turned 30 in Feb.
Just ticked over. Yep.
I'm going to hopefully keep my young face for as long as I can.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
You'll see, when I was in my 20s, I always used to complain I didn't have enough grey hair. People wouldn't listen to me. And now I've got all the grey hair. I wish I didn't have it. So, yeah, be careful what we wish for. But what I'd like to do, Lavinia, is if you've got young people coming through behind you and they're motivated and they're driven, and what's the biggest mistake you see those young people making in your mind? And what advice would you give them?
The biggest mistake that I see, I think, not realizing how hard you have to actually work to get there. I think we're not acclimatized to working as hard as our parents' generation. And my father and I have had this conversation. He's like, we had to slog so hard, and for granted, our generation will never have to slog that hard, especially in agriculture. I think when my dad was in his 20s, he was earning $85 a week, right? Which we couldn't even fathom. So the sort of changes that have happened in the last 30 years are insane. And we really still do need to work hard. I think lifestyle, mindset, and being able to know when you need to have a rest and have a mental health break and have a break from your farm are so important. And I think you're actually going to get further ahead when you do take that step back to reassess. But in those times where you're on farm, to get ahead, to be the next best, you have to work really hard. And that's not spending 15 hours a day on a machine. That's entering into a leadership role within the farming business as that, either taking over what the CEO is and running the business like that, and crunching your numbers and optimizing. But even knowing, okay, I might not have the skill set for this. I only have an operator skill set. What professional development things do I need to do as a person to get to that point? Because farm businesses and businesses in agriculture aren't just, let's put a crop in or let's buy some sheep. You have to have such a high level strategy now to understand what you're doing now is going to benefit you in 10 years and what that's going to look like. And I think the current environment right now is really putting on those hazard lights to say, if you're not really running your farm like a business and you're not looking at opportunities to make it in different aspects and make money outside of just putting a crop in or whatever that is that you're doing on your farm, then you're already behind. And that's sort of something that I'm really seeing now. I can see the people who are going to be good and great and here in 10 to 20 years, and I can see the businesses and people that are probably going to really struggle in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. And we know what happens then. It means that there's sort of this bigger farms buying more farms and the smaller farms sort of going away. So that is probably what I see. I think that can be scary to hear for some people, but the people who are on top of it will hear that and be like, I'm already there, I'm all good. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to do now. You can't just worry about planting the crop. Putting the crop in is one component of the farming business, but it's not everything. So that is a hard thing for a lot of people to be across and really comprehend.
Yeah, and if you've got to be hungry, you've got to want it, don't you?
You've got to be hungry and you have to be resilient. I think our parents' generation were resilient, but the level of resilience you have to have now, because they had debt, they had, a couple of $1 million, but, now people have $40 million of debt, $100 million of debt. The mindset that you have to have and the level of resilience that you have to just be comfortable with that is a very different version of a person than who started in the beginning. And that evolution and how to evolve, that's really hard for a lot of people to comprehend. So I think personally, I'm really excited, if you can hear it in my voice, because there's a lot of things that are going to change. And I think it's going to be ultimately for the better. But a lot of people, it's going to be too much for them. And that's okay. Not everybody is going to survive the next generation. And that's all right.
No, I totally agree. And look, a lot of people complain about the current generation coming through, about they're lazy and entitled and all those sorts of things. And I think there is a significant amount of that. But I also see a whole bunch of young, driven, motivated, risk-taking individuals coming through, both men and women. And I absolutely love it. And I think if you can tap into that, if you are one of those, back yourself, have a crack. Take the risks now, because in 10, 15 years' time, you possibly won't be able to. And I think to the older generation who have got the farms is find those young people. They're out there. They're looking for an opportunity and they just want to find the place to work and be mentored, etc. So, I think that's great advice, Lavinia. Now, Lavinia, where can people find you online? Because I'm guessing there's some people going, that's bloody stupid idea. I don't want anything to do it. There's going to be some that are going to go, that's great. They'll rush out and start taking some videos and they'll do it themselves. And others will be going, well, screw that. I don't have enough time for this. I need to get someone to do it. Where can people find you and AgSocial online?
So we have good SEO. So if you Google AgSocial, you will find us because we have Google ads running. So you'll find us straight away. We're on Instagram, agsocial.au, Facebook, agsocial.au, LinkedIn, we're on there as well. You can find me, Lavinia Wehr, so Lavinia Wehr, and Ben will probably have all the links. You can email us, you can DM us on Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere. So that's where we're at. And we're always happy to help. If you are one of Ben's clients and you're starting out and you're wanting to do this, just shoot us a DM. We're happy to give you a couple of spark notes on how to do a simple strategy. It's really simple, like Ben mentioned, with the sort of capacity of supporting with AI. So utilize that as much as you can.
Fantastic, Lavinia. Well, that's been amazing. I've really enjoyed today. I think we should have you back on again sometime soon to talk a little bit more in depth about some in-depth strategies, if you'd be open to that.
I'd definitely be open to that. I think that we could definitely nut that out for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, that was a great story and a lot of useful information. I just want to summarise a few quick things before we head off. Firstly, Lavinia said, come up with a plan. You can speak to Lavinia or someone like Lavinia. You can get on Claude or ChatGPT and just say, hey, I want to start a social media presence. How do I actually go about that? Number 2, you need to start posting some content. She said, video was the best, but if you're not comfortable with that, just do some photos to start with. But she said maybe start with 1 post a week. You can go online, you can put it into the scheduling software and just do it all at once. Do 4 at the beginning of the month, spend 15 minutes, post it in there and have it go out nice and simple and easy. She suggested Facebook or Instagram were the best places to start and to keep it really, really simple. So don't overcomplicate it. Video is probably best, but if you can get videos of things you're doing on the farm that's interesting, just get it out there and just get it started. And I can tell you now, it'll start to build that presence and do what you need to do. Now, if you enjoyed that episode today, make sure you give us a rating online or share it with a family or one of your friends that you think really need to hear this. Now, I'm Ben Law, I'm the financial bloke, and remember, it's more important who you are than what you've got. I'll see you next time.